Okay, two examples of sort of real-world examples that could be modeled using piecewise functions. Cell phone data. A cell phone company charges $70 per month, and that includes 5 gigabytes of data. I've tried to update this example from the textbook versions. The textbook versions sound really out of date. So after that 5 gigabytes, the company charges $20 per gigabyte. Create a piecewise function to model these charges. So this is the simpler version of the two questions that can come up. There's only really two categories we got to talk about. So I can start setting that up immediately and go, okay, my charge, you can use whatever variables you want. You see some people always use y and x, and that's totally fine. But I think c and m really helps me here. Charge for a certain number of minutes, or certain number of gigs. Ooh, I'm still caught up in the 80s here. Charge for gigs. C at G, you know, a little bit better choice for variables there. So equals. I like setting these up beforehand. I just get this all set up and go, okay, I got to figure out something to put there. But that first category is going to be for the first 5 gigabytes of data. So this is between 0 gigs and 5 gigs. I need a rule in there for people to use so they can figure out how much their data is going to cost them. And then I need another rule when they use more than 5 gigs. Okay? This one's really nice because the cell phone company charges $70 per month, and that includes the first 5 gigabytes. So if you call them up and say, hey, what if I use 1 gigabyte? They say, it's $70. Like, what if I use 2 gigabytes? $70. What if it's 3 gigabytes? Oh, it's $70. And I'm trying to get through to you about these constant functions that we haven't done much with, is that 0 to 5 gigs, the answer is just $70. And that messes people up sometimes because they're like, where's the x? Where's the g? Where's the variable? There isn't any variable. I am Groot. I am 70. I'm always 70. So between 0 and 5, there's no math to do here. The answer is 70. And if you were to graph it, you'd see a line right across at 70. Okay? This is where it gets a little more complicated. More than 5 gigs, they charge $20 per gig. And everybody wants to write 20G. Oh, you multiply 20 times the number of gigabytes. Just imagine that for a second. Let's say you'd use 6 gigabytes. And you went $20 times 6 gigabytes. That'd be $120 you'd be paying. That wouldn't fit at all. That's not right in all this. So if you have trouble with these questions, I encourage you to go over here and just make a little note and going, okay, there's 2 types of gigs here. If I use 6 gigabytes, there's my 5 gigabytes that's free. Well, it's not free, is it? You paid $70 for those 5 gigabytes. Yeah, so it's not free, but you know what I mean. It's included in there. And then there's 1 gigabyte that I have to pay $20 for. Okay? And that really helps you to frame what's happening here, is that you don't pay $20 on all the gigabytes. You pay $20 on some of the gigabytes. That's the big question. How many of the gigabytes? Because we got to do it with G, not with 6s or 7s. So let me give you a random number of gigabytes, and I'll try and quiz somebody here. Nothing I ask will be difficult here. No trap coming here. But if I said you use 9 gigabytes, how many of those gigabytes would you have to pay for? Pay the extra amount? 4. Derek says 4. What did he do with the 9? This is the important moment. This is the whole question in a nutshell. What did he do with the 9? He subtracted 5. So your rule should say multiply 20, but take the gigabytes and subtract 5 before you multiply by $20, because you get those first 5 free. That's the tough part of these questions. And I hope I've explained it in a way where you're like, oh, I get that now. There's more to this, though. This person just doesn't pay $20, right? We wouldn't charge them. Okay, let's just think that out for a second. If you use 6 gigabytes, you wouldn't go 6 minus 5 is 1 times 20. Oh, my bill's $20. What's missing in that? The base 70. And some people write this the other way around. They write 70 plus 20 times G minus 5. Either way is good. You should simplify it, though. And that's where the answers will mess you up. When you first look at the answer in the back of the book, you're like, what are they talking about here? This doesn't make sense at all. It's because they've just multiplied this out and collected up like terms. You can do it here if you want. You're really not supposed to. You're really supposed to write a whole new a function there. But I get it when you first learn about them. So I think I'd get 20G minus 100 plus 70, and then I'll just tie that up a little bit. 20G minus 30. This minus 30 is mysterious. Minus 30? Subtracting 30 off? Let me explain where it comes from. Let's say you accidentally wrote your check. $20 times your number of gigabytes. And you sent it in. You said, oh, I used 10 gigabytes. I got to pay $20 for gigabytes. And you send them $200. They'd be like, no, you forgot about your free gigabytes. You sent us $30 too much money. And that's how the math sort of plays out here. It goes, if you use this rule, 20G, you'll be paying $30 too much on your bill than what you were supposed to. So that's where the minus 30 comes from. It's not a fake 30. It's not a fake 30 at all. It's like a simplification of the equation here. I really like that equation. Years ago, I used to always write, simplify your equation, like it was a big deal to simplify it. Now I'm sort of like, I don't know. We usually want to simplify the equation, but this equation's really good. It really explains what's going on here. 20 times g minus 5 plus 70. That's a really good explanation. Okay? Now, your textbook makes a mistake there. Question 1.6, number 6. It doesn't include the x minus 500 in there when you get to that question. So the back of the book just says 15 plus 0.02x, and it's wrong. All right, so the solutions are right there. So make sure you draw your attention to that. One of the reasons I've made this into a video is so that if you're going back to watch this tonight, you're like, I didn't even get to that homework yet, and you want to re-watch this video. I'm going to post this video about what I'm doing here, and really reference the fact that that answer is wrong in the back of your book. Feel free in the back of your book to strike it out with your pen and write over top of it and fix it. You know, we should have done that years ago. Okay, that's the easy one. And I don't think it's easy at all, but that's the easy one comparatively speaking. The one that's really a good one, because it really applies to this world, is the income tax question. So let's talk about income tax for a second. The country Todd is king has an income tax policy where people making up to $10,000 pay only 5% income tax. I like this policy, actually. If I was king, this is the policy I'd make right here, exactly. People making 10 to 20, 50,000 pay only 25%. And after that, people start paying 80% tax. Create a piecewise function that models this tax policy. Okay, why do income tax rates change? Let's just talk society-wise for a second. Someone who makes $10,000 or $15,000 in Canada, every dollar of their money is going to survival. Like just to get through the day, the week, the year. We don't expect them, as a good society, to also pay for all the health care and all the roads and all the crazy luxuries we have in this world. Because there's a good chance if they're making that much money, they're not using the roads very much anyways. And they're not using some of the services that we're paying for. All right, so we take care of them. As you start making more money, we start charging you more income tax because less of your income is going to necessities. That's the part people miss that get upset about tax breaks for people who don't make much money. We're not taxing your necessity money. We're taxing your party money, yeah? The government wants some of your party money, which is above some number that we don't really, can't really define. Now, there's something else to tax policy that you need to understand. There's an important line in income tax in Canada at about 100,000. I forget exactly where it's at, but it's around 100,000, they start taxing you at a much higher rate. That's sort of the defined number in our country right now. Around 100,000, you're making good money. You can start paying extra. But you only pay extra on the money over 100,000. It has to be that way. You don't pay higher rate on all your 100,000. Your first 100,000, you can pay the lower rate. Once you start making more than that, you start paying the higher rate. I'll give you a small example why it has to be that way. I make around $100,000. It's somewhere in that neighborhood. Might be like 104, 105, something like that, because I'm a department head. Okay? So, if they changed the policy and said, no, once you start making over 100,000, you pay the higher tax rate on the whole thing. Let's take 30 and 40% as an example. Let's say it's 30% on the first 100,000. You make 100,000, you pay 30%, so you're paying 30,000 in tax. Yeah. Big numbers to live in this country because it's so awesome. But if they changed it that you paid, as soon as you make over 100,000, you start paying 40%, look at the problem. Someone who makes 100,001 extra dollar pays an extra 10,000 in tax. They lose $10,000 for making an extra dollar. It can't be that way. It can't just jump like that. It can't be discontinuous. It's got to go like this. You pay your 30% all the way up, and then now you just start paying a little more on your extra money that you made. So on that extra dollar you made, you just start paying 40% on that. Okay? That's the part you need to understand to know what's about to happen next. So here comes my tax policy. One section at a time, and I like setting it up over here. And I'm going to go with t at x this time because that matches up with the way the book handles it instead of the fancy variables I used last. I don't care which variables you use on a test. You just can't go back and forth. You can't start off with g's and switch over to x's or something like that. Okay. 3 categories here. I've got to make some room here. First I need between 0 and what did I make up here? $10,000. And let's do these sections one at a time so that they don't sneak up on us here. Between 0 and 10,000, if you make that much money, you only pay 5% of your salary. This is easy. This is grade 8, grade 9 type thinking. Oh, you take your X value, how much money you make, and you multiply it by 0.05. Anybody in this category can easily figure out their taxes. They take their pay and multiply it by 0.05. Done. Next category. I've done a few of these. Look at me move over. I'm like, oh, there's stuff coming here. I gotta have some more room. 10,000 less than X up to, what did I make it? 50,000. In that category, there's 2 categories of money. Anybody who makes over 10,000 has 2 categories of money. First, they have the first 10,000. Then they have the stuff between 10 and 50. Okay? So let's talk about the higher stuff first. Most people, I think, handle it that way, but you don't have to. Is they go, okay, we're going to pay 25% tax, but not on your full X value. You don't pay 25% on all your money. You only pay 25% tax on the stuff that's above 10,000. What should I write in the brackets here to indicate just the stuff that's over 10,000? Let's let that process for just a second before we hit the answer here. I got to write something in the brackets that just indicates just the money that's over 10,000. Grace, what do you like here? X minus 10,000. Take whatever you made and subtract 10,000 off it because you're not paying 25% and all that stuff. So this is X minus 10,000. But you're not done yet. Yes? You just got a freebie on $10,000 worth of tax there that you didn't pay your tax on. You don't have to pay the 25% on that. What do you got to pay? What rate do you pay on your $10,000 that you made originally? What's that? Oh yeah, the 5%, the original 5%. And this is no mystery what goes in the brackets here. It's not confusing at all how much goes in the brackets here. It doesn't have X's or anything like that. You know exactly how much you made in this category. If you made over 10,000, you made the first 10,000. We already said you're in that category. So this is 5% of the 10,000 in that initial category. So really in your brain go, oh, there's 2 types of money here. There's the first 10,000. Oh, I pay 5% on that like everybody else does. And then on everything above 10,000, I got to pay 25%. The answer in the back of the book's confusing because they multiply this out and collect like terms, making it look really mysterious. So you get, I'm going to write right in here, 0.25x minus 2,500 plus 500. And I get 0.25x minus 2,000. And the minus 2,000 is like, oops, I forgot my x. The minus 2,000 is completely mysterious. And I'll let you process that for a minute about where is this minus coming from? How can there be minus in the middle of all this? I want to take a shot on what the minus means and all this. Oh, it's covered up. 25% tax minus 2,000. I've explained it, but it's tough to get a hold of exactly what that minus 2,000 means after I've done this. See, this equation's more complicated algebraically, but easier to understand. This is simple algebraically, but hard to understand. Anybody on top of this yet? I'm going to do it once more. Heather? It's a great way to explain it. Let me just rephrase what she said is, if you pay 25% tax on everything, you've paid too much. Like, let's say you by accident go, okay, 25% tax, and you send it off to the government. The government's going to go, whoa, 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 whoa. You didn't have to pay 25% on everything. You only had to pay 25% of some of it. You've paid $2,000 too much tax. You paid 20% too much tax on this money. So you get that 20% tax back on all that. It's hard to understand. That's hard to follow. That's why I stopped getting people to simplify this when you're first doing it, the first chapter ever, and said, I think you're going to like that one better, actually. The simplified one isn't simple at all. So I take the non-simplified version on the test now. I'm quite happy with that. So if you're like, okay, I get that. I'm good. This is confusing. Well, that's okay. I think that's okay now. Is that you understand the first equation, but the second one's difficult. Okay, one last category. Lots going on here. The good news about a question like this one appears in the test. If you can get that far, you can get most of the marks. If the last category confuses you, that's fine. You still get most of the marks. In the $50,000 category, if you make over $50,000, how many categories of money is there? Now 3 categories. There's the money you made less than $10,000. There's the money you made between $10,000 and $50,000. And now there's the number you make greater than $50,000. This is why accounting's such a big job, right? We're on day 1 of accounting here, and it's already like, oh, there's a lot to keep track of here. That's why we have accountants with 4-year degrees to figure all this stuff out when things get real complicated in the real world, right? Okay, let's do the categories one at a time. First category. What did I say? 80%. Unworkable. Everybody would move out of my country that was rich if I did this. But okay, this is my tax policy. 0.80. They only have to pay that 80% tax rate on anything they make over $50,000. Who wants to take a shot at what goes in the brackets if I only want the money over $50,000? I'm going to let you think about it for a second. Do that yawning cage thing with your brain. Like, okay, I don't know, but I'm ready. I'm ready for whatever you're going to say. What do you like here in the brackets? Just the money over $50,000. X minus $50,000. Take whatever you made, subtract $50,000. You only got to pay 80% on that money. Let's say I made $70,000. I don't pay 80% on $70,000. I pay 80% on $20,000. Next, the 25% category. This, I think, is the hardest moment in the question. It's the hardest to come up with this middle category. So I'm going to skip over and come back to it. It's easy to come up with the 5% category. How much money is in the 5% category? How much of this money do you pay 5% on? Just the regular $10,000. I always pay 5% on $10,000. One question that comes up every once in a while, but this far in the question, is somebody goes, wait a minute, well, what if they didn't make $10,000? We already established these are the people that made over $50,000. Of course they made the first $10,000. They're paying 5% on the first $10,000, 80% on everything over $50,000, and 25% on, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. How much money, I'm going to try and phrase it in a way that makes you go, oh, I know what the answer is. How much money did they make between $10,000 and $50,000? $40,000. Everybody wants to write 50 there. Your brain screams 50, except it's not 50,000 that you make between 10 and 50. Between 10 and 50, you only make 40,000. The answers in the back of the book are extremely confusing because they multiply it out and collect up like terms, making numbers that don't really fit with reality. But I'll let you think about it for a minute while I do it. 0.8x minus 40,000 plus 10,000 plus 500. And I get 0.8x minus 29,500. Now it's really hard to comprehend what the heck is going on here. I'm just going to double check those numbers in my calculator here. 0.8 times to see if I'm getting old. Used to be I could do these in my head no problem. Maybe I still can. We're about to find out. 40,000, yeah. 0.25 times 40,000. 10,000. Yeah, I'm all over it. 0.05 times 10,000. 500. Negative 40 plus 10. Giving you lots of time to think out your answer to the last question I'm going to ask. Negative 29,500. can anyone make sense of this negative 29,500? Not required in this course. I'm not warming up for a question on the test where I'm like, okay, can you make sense of the 29,500? Because actually, I think if you use that equation, you're probably understanding it better at this point. The non-simplified version is actually the simpler one to understand here. But algebraically simpler here, 0.8x minus 29,500. What's minus 29,500? How does that pop up out of all this? I think I know what he means. He's got an interesting way of phrasing it. But if you pay the 80% tax, again, if you send the government 80% of your whole tax bill, you have paid too much. You weren't supposed to pay 80% on the whole thing. You weren't supposed to pay 80% in the last part. You're supposed to pay 25 here and 5% here. You'll have paid $29,500 too much by the time you did all that. You paid, you paid 55% too much tax on this stuff. You paid 75% too much tax on this stuff. And when you add all that up, it comes out to 29,500. And so the government's going to say, send you a little check saying, no, 29,500. And this actually sort of happens. Each week, every 2 weeks, they take income tax off my check, huge amounts. And at the end of the year, they're wrong. Invariably, they're wrong. It was the guesses were wrong over the year. And I send them all my information. I go, no, I should have paid this much. And they either send me a refund or I've got to pay up on the stuff I didn't pay. Because it's a guess all year. We sort of guess how much you got to pay all year. So it sort of plays out like this. Any questions about those two big scary examples? Good news and bad news. The bad news is, yes, there's one of these coming. The good news is there's only two types, and I told you they're coming, so it's worth the investment. It's not studying like, oh, I wonder if there's going to be an income tax question. I haven't been subtle. Yeah, income tax coming, and a funny country name, and some funny rules that I'll make up, on your test. Okay.